Hey everyone, thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm just waiting for everyone to get joined here on the video call. I'm Brendan with Beacon Customer Success. So if you ever reach out to us, I'm often the person you'll end up talking to. And today we are gathered here to talk about creating inventory in ConnectSx Beacon. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to kind of go through some house cleaning items while everyone joins the call, and then we'll hit the ground running. So first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. Just a second here. There we go. I'm going to share my screen so that we can talk about how best to get in touch with us if you ever need us. So hopefully you are seeing my screen and you'll be looking at the ConnectSx website. So the reason I go here is to show you our resources section. So at ConnectSx, we have a lot of resources to help you get your questions answered and work through any support issues you may be having. A few things to point out are the knowledge base. Here in the knowledge base, we have a massive database of articles that will teach you about how to use ConnectSx Beacon. It's a great place to go to get your questions answered, on demand quickly, without waiting for support. So this is always a good place to start, if you're having like little issues. Also, if you want to teach yourself more about how to use the system, we have a lot of helpful categories here, or you can just search for what's interesting you. A couple other things, though. If you actually do have issues and want to get in touch with us, submitting a ticket is going to be the best way. You can always reach out to us directly if you have a contact here at Beacon. But submitting a ticket to our support team makes sure that everyone sees your ticket at the same time. So it'll make sure that eyes get on your ticket as fast as possible, and we can assign someone to help you without you waiting around for one particular person to check their email. So submitting a ticket is always a great way. Even if you did contact someone directly, maybe do both. Make sure that you get your ticket in. You can also do that by emailing support@connectsx.com. We obviously have a webinar schedule. You know about that because you're here. But we're constantly publishing new webinars, new blog posts, just a lot of thought leadership, sharing our expertise and our knowledge with you. So if there are resources you're looking to see, please reach out and let us know. We're interested in knowing what you care about. So we want to make sure we're creating the things that will matter to you. So let me just check and see how many people we've got here. And then we'll get going. Okay, I think it is time to dive in. So before we get started, I already introduced myself at the top, but we've had a few other people join. I'm Brendan with ConnectSx Customer Success. And today we are going over how to create inventory, the various different methods that are available to you and which ones are suited to your specific situation. A couple of things just to note at the top would be if you have any questions, please let us know by dropping them into the Q&A section in Zoom. This will let you know, or this will let me know that you have a question, and I will do my best to get those answered. And we can work through any comments and questions that way. So I'm going to switch over to Beacon. So hopefully now you're seeing the Beacon console, and I am going to start taking you through it. So creating inventory in ConnectSx is a pretty basic step. It's one of the first things you do when you get a ConnectSx account. It's also one of the first things you do whenever you receive new inventory. And there's a few things to bear in mind. First, are you creating your data correctly? This is probably the most important concern. And then next, are you creating your inventory efficiently? because if you are creating inventory on a regular basis, you want to have a process that's efficient, that's going to work for you, and it doesn't create bottlenecks every time you get a shipment in. And we here at Beacon are constantly looking for ways to make this process easy for you. So we have a bunch of different options that are suited to different situations. So we'll start walking through them. The first option, and we're going to navigate over to the all inventory screen, is called our scan UDI method. This is the best option if you have UDI barcodes available to scan. Maybe you have just a few items that you're entering. Maybe you have a random kind of selection of items that you have to scan in. Maybe it's a return that hasn't been created in the system before. Any number of reasons. But if you need to scan barcodes, this is probably the easiest option for you. So we're going to go to the new inventory button and click Scan UDIs to add. This will pull up this pop-up screen, which allows you to scan text or scan barcode. First, we're going to scan barcode, which will open up my device. Hey there. And you can switch your device if you have an external scanner. But I'm just going to use the camera here on my computer. And you'll have to bear with me. Sometimes scanning a phone doesn't work as well as scanning an actual device, but you can scan your barcode. Just get it to recognize my phone screen. There we go. Okay, so it scanned my UDI barcode, and what it did is it went and read that data in the FDA Good ID database, where the UDI for this device was stored already, or the DI rather, which is just the front section of the UDI. But what our system did is it went and gathered all that data from the Good ID database and ported it over here to Beacon so that you can easily create this inventory. Now, what you'll notice is we have a quantity of 1 here. So the way that this method works is it's a singular quantity 1 added for every scan that you add. So maybe I need to scan a bigger quantity than just 1. So I'll click scan additional items, and I'll scan again. Usually the second one's a little easier. And there we go. Quantity went up by 1 because I scanned it again. So I can repeat that as many times as I want to increase my quantity. It's really built to, or it's designed rather, to scan the actual inventory that's being created. That's why we have that 1-to-1 ratio. So, what you really should do is just scan, 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 scan. All the inventory items that are in the box that need to get created, you'll end up with all those items listed here, and you can just import. So that's probably one of the easiest ways we have to create inventory in Beacon. Without me taking a little while to talk about it, it goes really fast. You just scan the barcode, create the inventory, and hit import, and then there it goes. Easy as pie. Oh wait, we had a red. Okay, so this would be a new manufacturer for this account, is the issue that we ran into here. So what I would need to do is go create that inventory in the directory, or create that manufacturer in the directory, then I'd be able to create this inventory. So good thing to remember is make sure you have all of your directory records created before you're creating this inventory. That doesn't just mean manufacturers. That also usually means product lines and catalog records. I recommend getting all of those things set up before you start importing inventory to make sure that you keep your data consistent. However, we do have another option. So let's say you don't have barcodes available for your inventory, but you do have text of your UDIs. So in that instance, what we will do is go down to the Scan UDIs button again, and I'm going to clear out the previous scan. The difference here, though, is we're going to scan the text. So you need an image of your text. So just snap it with your camera, or take a screenshot if it's on a computer. You need an image of your text. Then we're going to go find that image here on my computer. There we go. This is actually the same barcode that I just scanned. However, I'm going to focus on the text. So you can see that the system's asking us to crop down to the selection of the image that we want the system to analyze. So we are getting rid of everything else that we don't want it to look at. So getting rid of the barcode, you want it to be just the text of the UDI. This is, giving the system the best shot to actually analyze that and return a positive result for you. So I'm going to hit crop and proceed. The system will read my image, and you can see up here in the text section what it read from my image. So it is not bad. We're correct up until the middle here, but then you can see the $2 got read as an S and a 5. Now the system's not going to like that. It's going to parse that differently than the actual UDI. So we're going to type in, oh, we're going to type in the correct characters. So that is always a caveat with any of these inventory creation modalities is check your data. We are dealing with computers. Sometimes things happen and mistakes occur. You want to make sure your data is going in correctly. So double check always. So, and it looks like I deleted the 7 there. So now we have our UDI. I just had to fix those $2. And that doesn't happen with every scan. Yours may go in just fine. But then we can hit complete, and the system adds the scan just like we scanned the barcode as normally. So it went and searched the GoodID database just like it did before. So that's another pretty useful way to create inventory on the fly. You don't even need a barcode. You just need your UDI. And of course, this information must exist in the FDA's GoodID database. That's an important caveat here too. Excuse me. If you're using your UDI, then your company must be compliant with the FDA's GoodID database regulations, and these items must have been submitted to the GoodID database for us to be able to go pull them down. Now, there's also a little bit of a refresh time. If you just put them in GoodID, it may take a little time for our system to refresh that data, but it will get there. So those are 2 really useful ways to create inventory. Our next stop is actually manual inventory creation. So to do this, from the All Inventory screen, you'll click the New Inventory button again, but we'll select Add Devices and Containers. So all of these options we've talked about so far, these are really useful when you're creating smaller batches of inventory. So in the previous case, we're scanning individual barcodes or we're entering individual UDIs. That's useful when you have a small amount of inventory you need to create. Another useful way to do small inventory batches, but maybe with a much larger quantity, is to create inventory manually. And this way, we are just going to plug and play. We're going to copy and paste or otherwise select and enter the information into this form here. So all the information that we pulled from GoodID just a second ago, we're going to be putting in ourselves. So just walking through this quickly, the first field is device or container. So device is your sellable inventory, your instruments and your implants. A container is what holds those devices. Think kind of like a surgical tray. A container is not a sellable item. So if you're creating, a batch of new sellable inventory, it's going to be a device. Then custody is whose custody are you creating the inventory in? Who's going to be accountable for it right off the cuff? Most often, this is the organization. So I went ahead and selected our organization, Acme Corp here, and then select the manufacturer of the inventory. So just like we saw a second ago, the manufacturer must exist in here for you to create this inventory. If it doesn't exist yet, you can click Add New to add it right there on the fly. You don't even need to leave this screen. We have a pop-up for you right there. So I'll go ahead and just select Acme Corp. And then product line, you also heard me mention a second ago, it's a good idea to have your catalog and product line existing before you create this inventory. And similar to the manufacturer, if you need to create it on the fly, you can click the Add New button at the bottom of the drop-down menu. But if you check this box, this will pull in the product line information from the inventory catalog. So saving yourself that step, as long as that information is set up in the catalog, which it should be, because every item must have a product line. So unless there's some kind of legacy data issue that you have, which just shouldn't be the case, your catalog record should have a product line to pull in. So next, select the catalog number from your drop-down record. And if you don't have one yet, just like we have been talking about, you can create one really easily here by clicking the Add New, which will just generate a pop-up. But you can see the description got pulled in from the catalog. If you want to edit that, you can. You are allowed to change the description from what's in the catalog, but I recommend using the description that's in the catalog because that'll keep it consistent over time. So you're creating inventory with the consistent description. Everyone is saying the same things, looking for the same things. Data consistency is a really key thing here. So yeah, I recommend using what you already stored in your catalog. And then enter the quantity. So this is really the superpower of this method is, previously, while we may have been able to scan many different devices, one after another, and create a batch of various devices that way, this allows you to create a large number of items that all share the same information. Okay, so I can't do 100,000, but I could conceivably create 1,000 of this device, all sharing this product information. So one batch at a time, but I have control over that quantity. So this is a useful method. If you just received like a new shipment of a particular device, maybe it's one production run and you have 500 of that item, this may be the best way to get it in. So you'll just have to decide what suits your needs best. If this inventory is going to go directly into a container, all of it into one container, you can select that container here. But bear in mind that all of this inventory will go into that container and it may not want to clear out if you assign it. So, we only have 10 devices here. That looks like a little bug from my browser, but all 10 of these devices can go in this container. That's fine with me. So we'll move forward for now. Click next. And here you can enter tags. So if you've used Beacon before, hopefully you're familiar with tags. These are user-defined search terms. So as you're creating inventory, if you want to add tags for a device, this allows you to search for your inventory or otherwise categorize your inventory using any piece of data that we don't already allow for. So, we have a lot of different fields and a lot of different pieces of data that we collect. But if there's one that your company uses that we don't, you can create that as a tag. That way you'll always be able to search for it. I'll also note that this is the best opportunity to apply tags to inventory in bulk. So let's say you're creating 1,000 items. All of those items will get this tag. There will be no other opportunity unless you're transferring all of those items to impact the tags for all of them at once. Otherwise, you'll have to do it individually, item by item. So if you want all these devices to have a tag, I recommend doing it now. And then this tag was already here. So it's pulling from the catalog. So that's important to remember that you can set tags at the catalog level. And then when you create inventory manually, they will get applied here. And then you can also add device notes. It's another helpful feature. Whatever you may want, it'll get applied to all the inventory in your batch here. But that's junk, so I'm going to delete it. Then we'll click next. And in this section, the additional information section, we have a lot of other kind of status level information that you can apply. So, if your inventory is going to get created with, looks like I'm not actually allowed to impact the consignment status or ready for sale status at this stage. You'd have to do that once the inventory gets created, but you can set an inventory type. So I'll go ahead and select implant. This is just product level information. Due back date and location. Looks like also we'll need to wait until the inventory gets created. But then very important is the billing section. So yes, this inventory is sellable, it's billable. So I'm going to mark it as billable and then enter a price for that item. This is the list price. So in all likelihood, the list price won't get used on actual bill sheets. That'll be your contract pricing, which gets updated in the directory. But as a backup, it's good to have a list price on every piece of inventory that you create in the off chance that a contract price gets forgotten or something like that. And then you can also enter the cost of goods for the inventory right here. You can mark this inventory as reusable. So what does that mean? It means that after a case, this inventory wouldn't be consumed if we mark that as yes. It would get dropped back into your inventory to be used again. So this is really pertaining to your instruments. So inventory that isn't consumed after it's used. As you can see, this can't be undone, so I'm not going to do this on this inventory. And also, it's sellable. So most often, this is single-use inventory. Then we'll click Next. And here, we can paste in the UDI. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull in that same UDI I was using before to show you. It won't match the catalog number that I've used, but it is a valid UDI. So if you plug in your UDI and click Verify UDI, our system will parse that UDI using the GoodID standard, or the standard for that labeler, rather, and it'll populate that information and gray it out. So why are we doing this? Because we treat the UDI as the source of truth. So that DI will not be able to be changed unless you delete that UDI. That lot number won't be able to be changed unless you delete that UDI. So I recommend this. I think everything, the UDI is what you're registering with the FDA. So I think that using that as the source of truth makes the most sense and gives you the most control over your inventory data. So that is what we recommend. But if you delete it, then those fields become editable again. And, if you need to enter something different, that is an option for you. Entering expiration date is another really good idea. If you don't already have a UDI that bears the expiration date, our system will automatically track your inventory and notify you as you're approaching those expiration dates so that you can manage how to process and otherwise deal with inventory that's going to expire. And then a few other different product information fields here. We have serial number, less common, but certainly available if you have a very unique identifier for this inventory. We do have a secondary barcode field to the UDI. So if you have proprietary barcodes that you've been using for longer than the UDIs have been around, maybe as an example, you could put that here in the barcode field. And when you scan it, the system will return the result. So it's an important thing to remember. It's always there if you need it. And then we also track manufacture date if you and your company track that. Then hit create and your inventory will get created. So all that inventory I just created, I think there were 10. It all got created with the same product information. And as we saw, it all went into that one container because it was the only container that I had in that custody. So yeah, that's a great way to create one batch of inventory at a time. Just takes a little bit longer because you're copying and pasting, but still quite a fast way of creating inventory. You just wouldn't want to do it for like your initial import, for instance, where you have to create many, many different batches of inventory. You'd probably want to do that using an import method, which we'll get to in just a second. But before we go any further, let's just recap. So far we have talked about how to scan UDIs to create your inventory. We've also talked about how to use the OCR to scan text and use your UDIs that way to create inventory. And then we also looked at how to create inventory manually, either devices or containers, and giving you that kind of granular level control over all the inventory data, but introducing a higher degree of risk because you as a human are actually creating that data. So, there's always trade-offs. Um, but a couple other things to mention about the manual creation method is the different places it's available. So obviously here in the all inventory screen, kind of the nerve center of inventory, we have the new inventory button. This is going to be the best place to go to find any of your inventory creation options. However, if you're in an event, so let me pull up an event where I could mark some inventory as used. Click mark used. And you can see here in the mark used screen, we also have an add new button. So here, if you're on, you're in a case or one of your reps is in a case and they find that they don't have the inventory that they need. If you have this setting enabled, they'll be able to create the inventory on the fly. So, um, I'm not going to waste your time talking through the different stipulations and possible scenarios that might make this necessary, but you know your situation. If you want your reps able to create inventory, then you could enable this setting. A lot of manufacturers don't. So this is a feature that you may not want to grant to your users, but if you want, for them to be able to create inventory on the fly, if they're in a pinch, that's an option you can enable. Let's see. Also, I go to movements. We have one other spot where you could use the manual inventory creation. And that's if you've done an inventory request to one of your manufacturers. So most often inventory requests are made by your field users of your organization so that we can send inventory to them in the field. We do allow you, though, to create inventory requests of your manufacturer. So if you need to order more inventory, this functions kind of like a lightweight PO. Um, so if you've done this, like this request I just pulled up, if you've ordered inventory from your manufacturer and it's now arriving, so here we have 3 batches of inventory I've ordered. You can actually track those receipts right in here. So if I hit mark received, I can say, let's say I received 7. And maybe I don't just want to track the receipts. I actually want to create that inventory as it's received. I can hit add inventory. And then right there pulls up the manual inventory creation modal for me. Just slightly different because some of this information is already getting populated from the inventory request. It's not going to let me create anything I want. It's going to let me create what I'm saying I received. So this is kind of a slightly adjusted version of manual inventory creation, but another really useful way to create inventory because, as we talked about, this isn't just about creating the inventory correctly, it's about creating it efficiently. So a lot of companies I know like to create inventory as it's received, make sure nothing gets left out, um, and uh, and make sure it's available as it's been brought into their organization. So operationally, whatever works for you, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that this was an option that's available to you. Okay, so we have gone over scanning, we've gone over OCR, we've gone over manual creation and all the ways you can access that so far in Beacon. The last big one is inventory imports. So to start this off, I am going to switch my shared screen over to Excel. Okay, hopefully you are seeing Excel now. And this is what an import looks like. So if you're an active customer with us, chances are you know what this looks like because we've done an initial import of your inventory. But this is the option you'll want to you'll want to choose if you have a lot of different inventory batches to create at once. So if we can expand some of these columns here so you can see better, I'll talk you through this a little bit. What we are seeing here is all of the information that we just populated in the manual inventory creation window, but laid out on one line by one line. So each line pertains to one batch of inventory. So, reading across here, we can see the manufacturer, product line, catalog number, description, all this information that we plugged in there, down to the UDI, serial number, lot number, expiration date. Yeah, you can read. But the point is, I have this quantity column. My quantity on this line is 25. So 25 items will be created matching the information on this line. We have a lot of different resources that go way in depth into each of these fields and the different pieces of data that you can put there, things to check. And we have videos about that as well. So I'm not going to go take an hour to walk you through the nuts and bolts of everything that goes into an inventory import. What you need to know is essentially, I recommend creating the catalogs before you import. Same with the product lines. And then you'll want to make sure these match specifically what's in the system. So I would recommend going to your catalog and pasting them into your import so that the text matches perfectly because they are validated fields. The system will go look for that catalog number. And if you have an extra like space at the beginning, it may not recognize that item. So you want to make sure your inventory data is correct and that it matches what you've created already in your Beacon account. A few other things, you want your UDIs to be valid. You also want your UDI to match the catalog number. That's something that we do not check for. What does the catalog number match the UDI? But obviously, if you're importing a UDI that doesn't match your catalog number, then that's a UDI that doesn't match that item. So you want to make sure your UDI matches the inventory that you are creating. Otherwise, all that inventory will get created incorrectly. And that is the key thing I want to underline here is as you're building out this spreadsheet, all this gets created at once. So, the risk is a little high of letting errors into your data. So I recommend having a pretty staunch and secure review process for anything that gets created via import to make sure that your inventory is controlled and the data is correct. But once you've created all this data and you have your import ready to go, you can save it as a CSV file. There we go. It's already saved. Save it as a CSV, and then we'll head back over to Beacon to import it. There we go. Okay, hopefully you're seeing Beacon again. And to import this file, we'll go to the All Inventory screen. You can also go to the Imports screen, actually. I'll show you both spots. So in All Inventory, you hit the New Inventory button and hit Import CSV. Or you can go to the Import screen and hit Import CSV here. You can also access the Scan UDI method that we used earlier in this screen and build an import that way. So if I click Import CSV, it'll ask me to search my computer for my file. There we go. I'll click Next. So if you're using the template provided by us, we have it available for download here in this link. If you're using this template, you can just check this box and we will map the columns of your import to the appropriate fields automatically for you. So this is a really easy way to save yourself a little work. I'm going to show you manually how to do it because it's also just not that much work. And it's good to, sometimes double check. So before we get there, you just need to select the manufacturer of this inventory. So that is one thing to note as you're creating inventory. All the inventory in the import needs to pertain to one manufacturer. So you'll need to do one import per manufacturer. That's the only way we make you split things up. But you can also create an import name. So I'll just create one kind of matching what we're doing right now. What is interesting about this field is it won't just help you identify your import later on to make sure that it succeeded or to look into it if it failed. This will also allow you to identify all the items in this import at a later date using the import as a grouping method. And I'll show you that after we import this. So click Next. And this is the column mapping screen, for lack of a better term. And this is what would have been done automatically for us if I checked that box on the last screen. Essentially, what we're doing here on the left-hand side is mapping the field from beacon to the column heading in our spreadsheet. So in each of these drop downs, we're seeing the column headers in our spreadsheet, and then I'm mapping them to the appropriate field. And so you can see it takes a little bit of time, but it's ultimately not a huge laborious task. You just have to make sure you're mapping the right things. And to help you with that, we have these previews. So if you click a preview below one of these headers, you can see a little display of the actual data in your spreadsheet to make sure you're mapping the right things and to make sure that, everything looks okay. If something's getting jumbled, or something's wrong in your spreadsheet, you might get kind of a clue by looking at these previews. Expiration date. And I'm going to go ahead and skip some of these non-required fields just to save you time. Custody is an important one to talk about, though. We didn't talk about it when we were looking at Excel. If you're entering custody for your inventory, you want to make sure that the exact email address of the user is what you put in the custody field for that row. So if inventory is going to be imported directly into one of your users' custodies, you want to make sure that email address matches verbatim. No extra spaces, no weird characters. I would also recommend matching the case sensitivity of the characters you use. You just want to really make sure that that is a specific match. And if you need to import something to the organization's custody, just leave it blank. I'm actually going to not even map the custody header here, and then everything will go into the organization's custody. So important thing to remember just about the custody field. All right, and I just need to find quantity. Okay, we got the big names here. This is a test account, so we'll be okay. And then hit create as long as your mapping makes sense and is correct. I always recommend double checking this, but I think we're all set here for our test import. Hit confirm, and your import will start. So once your import has started, you don't have to stay on this screen. You could go do things in other parts of the system and come back here and check if it was a success or a failure. This one went real quick, which was nice. So the top row there, we can see our import was a success. We created 625 items. As long as you have a clean import, this is a really easy way to create inventory, especially if you're someone who is comfortable in Excel. But you can see, things do happen. There are errors that can occur. So if you have an error, you can click into that specific import and get, a little report here of what line the error is on, and then what type of error you're dealing with. So, if you do run into issues that you can't resolve with an import, feel free to reach out to us using one of the support methods that I mentioned at the beginning of the call. We'll be happy to help you. But hopefully it goes well and you don't have any issues. I will say, if you've done an import, checking that it was successful is only half the battle. I recommend going to all inventory and actually checking out this data. Take a look at some devices and do like a spot check to make sure that the inventory was created correctly and successfully. The inventory you created should be right at the top. I can see here, just by the timestamp, this is the inventory I created. So, maybe you're looking at this and you see that this inventory is all expired. I used an old import and my inventory got created with an expired date. That's an issue. So maybe I want to undo this and fix that expiration date to be what it's supposed to be. You are allowed to do that. You can undo an import. And so that's one of the other big advantages of this option is you can undo it pretty easily, but there are stipulations. So let's talk through those. If you created an import and the inventory goes in, you have 48 hours to undo it. And none of the data that was created from that import can have been changed or modified in any way. So if you're going to do imports and do them on a regular basis, I really recommend instituting some sort of operational process around reviewing that inventory data and making sure that it's all correct. Because, if you import your data and then someone ships it out before you have a chance to check it, too bad. We won't be able to undo it. You'll have to make any adjustments manually, which can be a lot of work. So this is a sweet tool as long as you use it, within the time frames and parameters uh, that are allowed. So if you need to undo an import, you can go find the import here in the import screen. Oh, gotta find one that's actually valid that we just did. Here we go. Okay, so here I've gone to the import screen. It was successful. It's within the window. Nothing has been changed. I can click delete on this import. If I wanted to do that, I'll get this warning, and then I can hit delete, and all that data will be cleared out, and I can try again. So really, really useful strategy if you need it. Hopefully you won't ever need it. That's why I recommend checking all this data so thoroughly up front. But it is a pretty useful tool. So the last thing I wanted to show you here was what I mentioned earlier about naming your import. So if we go up to filters and find the import field right here, you can see we can select from the dropdown all the previous named imports that we've done. And if we want to filter our inventory by that import, so the batch it was created with, we can do that right here just by using the import name. So that's a pretty useful advantage if you're ever needing to go back and check specifically the batch of inventory that was created on a certain date, or any number of different types of audit scenarios. It's a pretty useful tool. So I recommend using it. So let's do a quick recap again. We have looked at scanning UDIs to create your inventory. We've looked at using OCR scanning to scan text of your UDIs and create that inventory. We've done manual inventory creation, and we've shown you throughout the system where you can do that, even allowing you to create inventory as it's received on an inventory request. And then lastly, we looked at imports, how to get them into the system, and also how to undo them if you need to. So it's a lot of different ways of creating inventory, all kind of suited to different scenarios. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop my share and take a look here at the Q&A, see if we have any questions. Please, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. We've kind of reached the end of the scheduled programming. So, I'll leave a little bit of time for questions to be dropped in here, but if we don't get any, we'll start wrapping up. Just leave a few more seconds here. All right. Well, thank you all for joining our webinar today about inventory creation. If you get into this a little bit later and find you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Brendan at ConnectSx.com. I'm with customer success here at Beacon. And then you can always reach out to our team by emailing support@ConnectSx.com. Or again, you can visit our website and access a wide range of different resources that are pretty helpful for learning the system, getting your questions answered, or getting support if you need hands-on assistance. So please enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and thanks for tuning in. Take care.